I studied Latin for 6 years. I translated all of the classics, Caesar, Pliny, Virgil, and of course Cicero. And one of Cicero's great essays is De Senectute, How to Grow Old Gracefully. A very important question. But I'd like to reflect on how to grow older gracefully, because at each stage of our life we are getting older, and at each moment of our life we need graces, both natural and supernatural, to help us develop into the human beings God would have us become. When we're toddlers, in the terrible twos, we're learning the power of the word no, and to defy our parents, and to have little temper tantrums. But we're also learning that there's a limit to what the word no could bring us, and our tantrums don't always result in what we need. We have to begin to learn the wisdom of obeying the adults who love us. There's a famous picture of me and my own family when I was about 4 years old. One of my cousins was visiting at Christmas time, and he got in my kiddie car. And the photo has me crying my eyes out, trying to get him out. That's mine, that's mine. It's not growing old gracefully. As children, we begin to learn we have to share our toys with our friends if we're to have any friends to play with. In grade school, we learn that there is a world bigger than our own home and family. And we have to learn how to interact with our classmates as well as with teachers, principals, etc. And at that stage of our life too, we begin to learn our potential and our limitations. We realize some of the children in class are straight A students, others are average, and others are struggling just to get by each year. Every time I received my final report card for the year, I'd always look at the last sentence in it, and it would say, next year your child will be in grade, and if it was the next grade, I'd run home with great joy, because I had a few iffy moments in grammar school. It wasn't my strong suit to study. Also, children understand where they are in relationship to their friends, how they fit in. In sports, by the time you're 9 or 10 years old, you already know who the star athletes are going to be. You already know whether you're really poor at sports or average, where you fit in. Where you are with your friends in terms of popularity, that is already forming an image of who we are. And as we grow older, we have to learn to deal with our limitations, but also to develop our great potential. Now, if we're lucky enough to be born into a religious family, we learn our prayers, we learn how to make the sign of the cross, how to fold our hands. But children who are not born into religious families, nevertheless, have a religious sense. And they know there's something wonderful, marvelous, beyond their imagination. So much so that atheists today have a Sunday school for atheist children to suppress any of those natural religious feelings that grow up in the heart and mind of a child. In our adolescent years, we have to struggle with all types of changes and difficulties. The two greatest dangers are becoming sexually active or experimenting with drugs and alcohol. Both of those things could have a devastating effect in our lives. How to grow older gracefully. To understand that we are children of God and our bodies are great temples of God that should be treated with reverence and dignity according to God's plan. In our young adulthood, when people are trying to find a spouse, look for a partner. If they're touched by the grace of God, they will look for another partner who also is open to the wonders of God's grace. And if they're called to religious life, They will follow the call to the congregation that the Lord wants them in, or to serve the diocese that God may be asking them to bring the Eucharist to. So many aspects of our lives. Then married couples have to learn how to grow gracefully as they grow older, to be good parents and then better grandparents. How to fit into God's plan in the larger world. And finally, there comes a stage in our life when our bodies begin to deteriorate no matter what we do. From sports injuries, my knees ache and my ankles hurt. Because of arthritis and spinal stenosis, my backbone isn't what it used to be. It reminds me that I'm not 24, but I'm 64. But how to grow in God's grace at this stage of my life is to grow older gracefully. And at each stage of our life, we have to rely on the Lord and the church within which we have found our destiny. Each of us, in our own ways, on our own journeys, get closer and closer to God if we correspond to God's grace at each stage of our life. But there is a way of growing older disgracefully, making up our own rules, living for ourselves, ignoring the needs of others, refusing to acknowledge God's existence, never reverencing the Lord of life, and, quite frankly, looking down on life itself, seeing it as expendable. That's the way to grow older disgracefully. I pray that whatever stage of your life you're in, that you'll open your heart and mind to God. And if you've made mistakes, if you've lived a sinful life and know how empty that life is, how hollow it is, that you'll turn to the Lord of life and say, "Take my heart of stone, make it young again by making it truly human, so that I can be truly humane." It is never too late, but you have to start now. May God bless you on your journey and protect and nurture all those that you know and love.